A good night of Shabbos. Tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday is the 93rd anniversary of the release of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe from jail and exile. He had been sentenced to death, and after death, sentenced to 10 years hard labor. And that was removed, 3 years exile, and finally he was given his release and told that he was free to leave the workers' paradise called the Soviet Union. And through that, he was able to influence tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Jews throughout the Soviet Union to keep their Judaism alive. And it was his emissaries, his Hasidim, that kept it alive until recent times. Of course, many people suffered, people were arrested, people were shot, people were interrogated and tortured. The Rebbe himself was tortured. Unbelievable torture. But after 30 days of imprisonment and solitary confinement and beatings, the Rebbe was sent to a village called Kostroma, and from there he was given his freedom to go to the free world and eventually establish Chabad in all the Chabad centers all over the world. And it says that God sent the refuah, the cure, before the wound, before the illness, the sickness. Prior to the Rebbe being arrested and adjudicated without a trial, he was going to be shot in an execution room. God sent the son of a Russian peasant to be a guard there. And this guard prevented the Rebbe from entering where he would have been shot. And instead, the Rebbe was given a cell, adjudicated to 10 years of hard labor, and then that was commuted to 3 years exile, and then he was given his freedom. So this turn of events that started 30 days before Gimel Tammuz, and then continued for another 9-10 days in exile, these days went from terrible tragedy to transformation and joy. And the same thing is true today. We are beset by political nastiness, political horrific groups of people. But before then, we've been attacked as a country and as the world community by a pandemic. The pandemic has turned everything around, has made everything upside down. Our whole schedules, our whole functions has been disturbed by this pandemic. And we're worried, and people are worried, and the doctors say that coronavirus is really, really exploding now. We're going to have a second wave. The Rebbe told us that there's going to be a virus, there's going to be a pandemic, and God will have already sent the refuah, the cure, before the disease. A heroic doctor, Dr. Zelenko, discovered a protocol to cure COVID outpatient. And when he presented his findings, he was attacked. Why was he attacked? There's tens, maybe of billions, maybe trillions of dollars to be made on treatments of COVID. Remdesivir, whatever that's called, will cost about $1,000 for treatment. The doctor discovered something that cost less than $20. An old medicine called hydroxychloroquine with zinc. Now, it isn't the hydroxychloroquine that cures, it's the zinc, but hydroxychloroquine opens up the cells so that the zinc can kill the duplicating effect of the virus, so the virus dies. It's an interesting theory. But did it work? He claimed it did. And the whole world was saying, no, it doesn't. It's dangerous, which was baloney. Hydroxychloroquine is safer than Tylenol. Sure, in large amounts, for people who have certain conditions, it's not a good idea, but it's in large amounts. They did studies with larger doses. They did studies without zinc. They did studies after the person was hospitalized and already had his lungs infected and the lungs were coming apart. They never did a study, you noticed, at the beginning of the infection. He did. Put the numbers together. And of about over 140 patients, only one died. And among the others, they had 377 patients at 15 or 17 that died. The numbers come out 6 or 7 times as much. He says 5 times as much. Regular treatment as opposed to hydroxychloroquine and zinc. That means from his total of hundreds of patients that he's seen, 99.7% of the people who were seen survived. Only 0.3%. 3 out of 1,000 would die from COVID-19, even if they were high risk. It's incredible. And if this cocktail was presented publicly as an outpatient treatment, there'd no longer be a need for people to be distanced from each other, wearing masks, isolated, not having businesses. The country could flourish again. The country could open up again. But there are forces that are working against it. The Democratic Party has a vested interest in the economy tanking. They're unhappy with the figures. When the figures come out good, they say it's not good enough. What do you want? You want more people staying at home. You want less businesses working. So what's your problem with having so many more workers? If it's not good enough, that means there would be even more people out in the street. Can't have it both ways. I don't mean all Democrats. I mean the radical Democrats. And then the Big Pharma doesn't want HCQ to work. So they've done whatever they can to discredit the doctor. But now, not only has the doctor spoken, but the studies have been made and put into paper. 34 pages of study, conclusions of which, remarkably, hydroxychloroquine and zinc work. They really do work. And it's really cheap. Yes. And God has provided the whole world with the cure before the pandemic. And just as God has given us the cure before the disease, God has already given us the cure for the ills of society before the disease. We just have to sit down together and talk things over and stop shouting at each other and talk with each other. and I'm sure we'll be able to come up with something. Have a wonderful Shabbos.